What's going on, guys? I thought with everything going on in the world, maybe just take a step back and just talk about some really cool guns that I like, that I am interested in. Now, I'm blessed to have a basic battery and then some. I don't consider myself a gun collector, but I have a good battery and some redundancy in that battery. But there's some guns that I just really am interested in, and maybe you guys want to hear about that. With that, welcome to the podcast where we talk about guns, tactics, ballistics, the right way with God at the center, biblical, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. Military, law enforcement, private security contracting, hunting, competition shooting, and some other stuff, bio bullet points in the show notes. Okay, let's get into it. If you guys have listened for any length of time, you know I'm big into hunting. One of the reasons I live where I do is because the hunting is so good, mostly for the freedom and the traditional values, but also a big part of that is the hunting. Like I want to be able to go behind the house and hunt elk. You know, that's a big deal to me. I love hunting. And you might think with all my hunting background and hunting all over the country and being a guide and professional hunter, they have some really fancy hunting rifles. I actually don't. I have some really good hunting rifles. I'm blessed to have some really good, solid hunting rifles like Ruger guide gun and 30-06. And because I have that gun and it's so good, I don't really need the idea that I'm going to talk about. But again, this is guns I'm interested in. I wouldn't mind a really nice, fancy hunting rifle in what I would call a hot rod cartridge. No, I coined that term. You're not going to find that anywhere. But a hot rod cartridge, something for the kind of hunting that I like to do, which is spot and stalk and still hunting, tracking, shooting off, standing, sitting, kneeling, prone, not off a bench, not off a bipod, not with some heavy, giant abomination of a scope for fidget spinners for men, but not with a bunch of electronics, but just a man and his rifle out stalking beasts. That's the kind of hunting that I like to do. And I like max point blank range shooting. So hot rod cartridge, something with kind of a better max point blank range than a 30-06. Again, do I really need this? No, that's why I don't have it right now. But I'm working 2 jobs, by God's grace, working hard. And since inflation is just stealing money out of your bank account every month, why not? I'm thinking about it. So a hot rod cartridge and a fancy rifle. And there's a couple of different options. I really like the Browning X-Bolts. They're smooth. They shoot well. They're really good rifles. I would consider that like a higher end, like a Browning X-Bolt, like a higher end hunting rifle. The issue is they're not made in America. They're not made in like Belgium anymore. They're made in Japan and Portugal. So that's not a no-go, right? They're not made in Turkey. They're not some Turk nasty clone of a good gun. They're actually a good gun. And I got nothing against the Portuguese. Japan is pagan, so I'm not really hip on that. But they do make good stuff. And they're not Muslims trying to cut my head off. So there's that. They got that going for them. So I really do wish they had an option to get a Browning rifle in made in America. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. They're not. So I would consider a Browning, though, Browning X-Bolt. They're fine rifles, especially they have the super grades or the high ends, whatever they call them, whatever, really nice looking rifles. Get one of those and something like I'm not saying I would pick this, but like a 280 Ackley improved. That's my number one cartridge I'm looking at for this. I would love to find, although there's not a lot of rifles chambered in them, 280 Ackley improved or 6.8 Western or something with a good trajectory like that for max point blank range shooting, not for dialing turrets and all this other ridiculousness, but just pointing and taking a beast, aiming, good trigger squeeze and take your animal. I'm not one to I generally don't like to sit down when I'm hunting more than 15 minutes. If I'm sitting for more than 15 minutes, I should probably be going somewhere else in general, unless I know there's an animal coming in. Like I'm waiting for an elk to come in. Then I can wait all day. But I don't just like to sit and just wait. That's not my style. I grew up hunting that way. I grew up hunting in tree stands. It's miserable. It's one step above going to the store and buying meat wrapped in cellophane. It's miserable. I don't like it. I also don't like sitting there on a giant bipod or a tripod with a heavy rifling, dialing and clicking and all this other stuff. I like spot and stalking, still hunting, tracking, that kind of hunting. So max point blank range shooting. And because I like to shoot a lot, as you might imagine, I don't want a Magnum. I don't stop recommending 300 Magnums. It just makes me want to vomit. I don't want anything to do with a 300 Magnum. 300 Magnums are fine in a heavy rifle. Or they're fine if you're the guy that's going to shoot 3 or 4 rounds to make sure your rifle's zeroed and go hunting that year. But if you're going to practice a lot, standing, sitting, kneeling, prone, shooting a bunch out of a lightweight rifle, that is not what I want. So I don't want a big Magnum. I want something with a better max point blank range in a light handy rifle, or a light-ish, a good handy rifle, like 7-ish pounds. I don't want anything heavier than that. So I mentioned the Browning. The other option I've been looking at is a Weatherby. And Weatherbys are really nice rifles. They're also made in America, so they got that going for them. And I would consider a Weatherby. When I was growing up, like Weatherbys were like a dream rifle, and Brownings were like the high-end dude's hunting rifle. I didn't even know anybody that hunted with a Browning rifle, but I remember like seeing them in the gun magazines, like, ooh. I think that was back when they were still made in Belgium or America. But anyway, I consider those in my head like high-end hunting rifles. Like a really nice rifle and a really hot rod cartridge. That's what has got me interested maybe for the future. We'll see. It's in God's hands. Another thing that I don't have is a PCC, and I've had many. If you guys have listened recently, you'll know that I got that Springfield Cuna, and what a waste of money that was. I mean, the gun technically worked, so there's that, but I really didn't like much else about it. You can listen to that review, but that was another attempt to get a PCC that made sense, and I thought maybe it would, but after shooting it, I'm like, this gun doesn't make any sense to me. I've had lever action PCCs and stuff like that over the years. I don't currently own a PCC. So something I would be interested in would be an actually good PCC, not a straight blowback, but a delayed blowback, or a PDW. And the difference is a PCC would strictly be in a pistol caliber, but a PDW I would consider in something else, like a very short 5.7. Yeah, short for a rifle. I mean like 10, 11 inches, 8-inch barrel, something like that. But a PDW type weapon, that's one thing. I wouldn't consider that part of a basic battery, but it would be really handy to have one of those as an option, and that's something that I don't have. So something like a PDW and a 5.7 type platform. I've been looking at those. The CMMG Banshee, they make one that would be pretty cool. Also, Diamondback, which I've had good results with their firearms in the past, even though they're kind of a lesser known brand. Diamondback tends to make good stuff in my experience, and they make like a 5.7 PDW that's pretty cool. Any other delayed blowback? I'm not interested in a straight blowback. I'm not interested in some straight blowback, like I like Ruger, but they're little carbines, or, I'm not interested in something that weighs as much as an AR, because a straight blowback is going to have as much recoil as an AR and is in a pistol caliber. So it's as heavy and less effective and less range and as much recoil. Like, I'm not interested in that. That doesn't interest me. So it's got to be something delayed blowback. I thought maybe the Springfield Cuna was going to be it, but that thing was it was a $1,200 gun that probably should have cost about $300. But it made in Croatia. I mean, I really wanted to like it because I dog on Springfield a lot because a lot of their guns are garbage. I was really hoping that wasn't going to be one of them. To be fair, it did function. Like, it didn't malfunction, so there's that. But everything else about it I really didn't like. I would like to find something like that that's fairly light, fairly small, handy, in a PDW type platform, whether it's a PCC or a PDW. But that's something I would be interested in. I just don't know that I found one that I'm really excited about, with a good trigger, good operating system, proven platform, so. But that is something that I'm interested in, a good PCC or PDW, especially now that we've gotten, hopefully, for the long term, the whole pistol brace thing worked out. That's a whole different game changer. I know they took away the tax stamp, but as far as I'm aware, they didn't take away the regulation that if you have a SBR or short-barreled shotgun or whatever, that you can travel across state lines. So just be aware of that. Just because they got rid of the stamp doesn't mean that you can just go driving around with your SBR, at least across state lines. And since I live in, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana kind of area, and I like that whole area, I want to be able to put something in my vehicle and not worry about, committing a federal crime if I drive across state lines. So that pistol brace thing, that really is a kind of a nice thing to have. Now, I do have a semi-PDW, which is a short-barreled AR. I use it in the real world. I use it in private security contracting. It's a good gun to have. But something maybe a little bit smaller, more compact might be worth having. Another gun that I would really like to have, just because they're really pretty, I'm going to be honest, just the main reason why is they're just beautiful. They're also a very good gun, but they're just beautiful. And that's a Ruger RSI, or the Ruger International. They're referred to as either one. But it's the one with the Mannlicher style stock where the stock goes all the way out to the end of the barrel. They made those in stainless steel. They made them in several calibers. Finding one of those in stainless steel, controlled round feed, with the RSI stock in like 243 or 308, that would be just beautiful. And I don't really need it because the deer doesn't really care what I shoot it with. It doesn't care how pretty it is. But it would be kind of nice to look at on nice, what I would call like good weather hunts where I'm going out. Just with a pretty rifle, just a nice rifle, right? That would be pretty cool. Those stocks, they don't really do anything, right? And they're probably less accurate than a traditional stock because you'd either have to bed the entire length of the stock and you can't really free float it as far as I'm aware. So, I don't, it would just be something I got because I wanted it. Let's be honest. It's not going to be any better than a regular, Ruger M77 controlled round feed, like my scout rifle, like my guide gun. Those are just heavy hitters, hard conditions, good to go hunting rifles. That wouldn't be any really better. It would just be prettier. So that's kind of why I don't have one. I tend to look at guns as practical tools for survival, for putting meat on the table, and for defense. But I do enjoy the beauty of a good-looking firearm. I can enjoy it. I don't know that I'm going to spend my money on it, maybe because I grew up poor and I'm cheap at heart. Even though I've got money now, maybe I should get off of that. But if something actually is better, I'll spend the money on it. Like I have 2 STIs, what is now Staccato. Those aren't cheap. But that's when I was carrying that on my hip as commander of a tactical team to stop active shooters. And I think it probably is the best handgun on the planet as far as for that mission. That's why I bought it, because other people's lives depended on me being good with that. I'm not afraid to spend money on a good gun, but it has to have an advantage. I don't know that I would have spent double if it had a cool camo pattern on it, because I would just take it and spray paint it. So just a philosophy there on how I think about guns. I'll spend good money on guns. Like I have a SCAR 17. That thing wasn't cheap, but I think it's actually worth the money. It's actually a really good gun. I wouldn't spend double on a SCAR 17 that had like wood paneling on it if somebody even did that, right? I don't care as much about that. I might think it looks better, but practically it makes no difference. But again, I do enjoy the beauty of a good firearm. Like a Colt Python, they're beautiful. Am I going to EDC one? No. No, because I want to stay alive. They were a really good gun, right, in the 60s, in the 70s, right? That was a good option. It's 2026 now. I almost said 25. 2026 now. Carry a full-size semi-auto with an optic on it, right? What are you doing? But a Colt Python is a beautiful gun. Like, I enjoy the beauty of it. Talking about guns that are beautiful that also are very good performers, I like the SIG 226 single action onlys. They make an upgraded version of that, the X5s. Those are really nice and like just beautiful, like they're top tier. I mean, I have a SIG Legion, so that's kind of top tier. I guess the X5 or X6 would be like the top shelf, like the super high end stuff. Those are really pretty. They're also really good guns. One of those would be kind of nice to have. And I really like those guns. They are beautiful, but they're also built like a tank as well. Really good, really sturdy. I believe they're stainless steel. Like the X5, X6s are just exquisitely built firearms. And they're also a fairly simple operating system. If you get a good match-grade barrel in there, you can kind of have the best of both worlds. That's why my favorite go-to EDC gun is the SIG 226 Legion. It's really well made. I've got a Barstow drop-in precision barrel that I can put in there. Crazy accurate. put a Trijicon RMR dual illuminated on there that doesn't take batteries. It just runs off radiation. And you've got super simple, super rugged, super accurate, great ergonomics, right? It's not a Glock. It doesn't feel like a 2x4 in your hand. It's just all around a fantastic gun. So I probably would also very much like the X5, X6s. Those are really nice guns as well. A gun I've wanted for a long time that's probably not pretty, the eye of the beholder, right? But I really like the Ruger Mini 30. Now, I don't have one because I have a Scar 17 and I have a bunch of ARs. But I've said, I don't know if I've said it in exactly these terms, but if you're looking for a good modern AK-47 with the ability to mount optics, that's a good crossover truck gun, carbine, just walking around gun. In my opinion, get the Mini 30. It's also a piston system. It's built on the M1 Garand system, so it's a decent system. It takes the same ammo. You can get it in 7.62 39, or you could get one in 300 blackout. And it's better for mounting optics. You don't have to do some weird workaround. You don't have to put like some red dot on the part of the AK that gets really, really hot. You don't have to worry about the janky kind of optics mounting issues you run into with the AK. And I like the AK. It's a fantastic platform. But I think the Mini 30 makes more sense for a modern American. So I would really like to have one of those just for like an alternate truck gun. I feel like walking around a gun. I'll often go for rucks, and I'm not out there because I wish I could just get an elk tag and go take an elk anytime I wanted to. But just going out, maybe I see a coyote, right? Maybe I see something, and I just want a rifle to walk around with. I do that pretty often, just go rucking. That would be a good rifle for that, a stainless steel. Because if you have an option to go stainless, in my opinion, just go stainless if it's between that and like a blued firearm. But what was I talking about? The Ruger Mini 30 would be a great walking around gun, just in the woods in general. They're not super heavy. They've got decent ergonomics. I like them. They feel like a 1022 to me, which is fantastic. I really like those. And you get it in 7.62 by 39 or 300 blackout, right? Really good. Again, there's nothing wrong with the Mini 14. If you live in a restricted state, they're a very good option. I actually use those in police work. We still have them, believe it or not. So I've actually used those. They're good too, but I just have so many ARs, and the AR makes more sense in a 223 unless you live in a restricted state, in my opinion. But they're a good gun. But the Mini 30, right, you run into several issues when you start scaling up an AR into something like a 7.62 by 39 with the bolt face and, different gas regulation and all this and that, buffer weights, all the stuff, right? So it's not as proven a platform in that. So it makes more sense to me to get it in a 30 caliber. It's a cool gun, and it's a gun that I don't have that's very utilitarian. It's kind of in an in-between area for me. So I don't have one, but I really like to. They're really cool. In fact, when I turned around and sold that Springfield Cuna, I was looking really hard. I was trying to consider what I was going to get. I ended up getting a Colt M6, or not M16, but the AR-15 M4, which I'm very happy with. I really like that rifle. It's a phenomenal rifle. It's my current go-to vehicle gun with a bailout bag. It's a phenomenal gun. But I was debating between that and a Mini 30 to tell you how much that I like the Mini 30. Also, one that actually kind of makes logistical sense for me and or for my wife. I'm a big fan of carry a full-size fighting handgun, which I do, which I do for work, which I do when I get off of work. Like carry a full-size fighting handgun on your hip like a man most of the time, and the majority of the time I do. I very, very, very rarely will carry a J-frame 357 Magnum in my pocket, but sometimes I will if it makes more sense. Like if I'm out doing wind sprints or out running, right? I can run with a 357 Magnum. It's super lightweight. I can't really run with a full-size fighting handgun very well if I'm running up and down mountains and stuff like that. So a smaller gun for sometimes, that makes sense. I actually don't own any small semi-autos, if that, and that might seem crazy because I have, STIs, I got SIG-226s, I got a Beretta, I've got Glock. As far as full-size fighting handguns go, I don't own any small centerfire semi-autos. My wife has kind of a compact. It's a Smith & Wesson M&P Compact 22. That's her, carry gun. But But I would like something a little bit smaller in a semi-auto. Glock 26, I've had those in the past. The last one I had got stolen, but a very good gun. As far as for a compact, I wouldn't recommend you carry a Glock 26 day-to-day or carry a Glock day-to-day, but if it's between that and nothing, it's better. So something like that, the Glock 26, a Gen 5, or even, and I'm not saying you should do this all the time, but even a small compact, 380, something like the, the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard version 2.0, whatever they're on, something really small and compact like that. Maybe even like a Ruger, or what's the Kel-Tec P32. That would be a good one. I actually owned one of those in the past, and I foolishly sold it. I wish I'd have kept it. I could, even with those fixed sights on there, I could hit headshots at 25 yards with that thing. It was a pretty cool little gun. And since it was in 32, not the greatest caliber, but since it was in 32, it was still a center fire, and it didn't have a lot of recoil. It had a decent amount of recoil for as tiny a gun as it is. It was better in that caliber, in my opinion, than a Kel-Tec P380 because you get more recoil. And 380 doesn't have a lot of recoil, but when you put it in like a 9-ounce gun, it does, just for getting consecutive hits on target. So that, that something super simple like a Kel-Tec P32, I don't have anything like that. And with all the guns that I have, I probably should have something like that. Again, I don't, because in general, if I'm going with a smaller gun, I'm just going to go with the Smith & Wesson 357 Magnum J-frame. It weighs like 11 ounces. I can get 5 shots of a decent centerfire ammo. But it's a revolver. Revolvers have their drawbacks. Small semi-auto, also maybe my wife would sometimes carry. That would be nice. Another gun that I would like to have is an older one. It's the Ruger Red Label, and I know they make the new Ruger Red Label, but they used to make one in stainless steel. And just my personality and how I like to go out and be in the bush and hunt hard and maybe sleep under a poncho, right? Like a stainless steel over and under, that has a lot of appeal to me. I wouldn't mind having one of those old Ruger Red Labels, stainless steel. I wish they would come back with that. That would be fantastic. Maybe they will, because they've reintroduced a Red Label this year. It's in a 20 gauge and it's blued, which would be a fine choice if you were just into upland bird hunting. I do like upland bird hunting, but not enough to spend that much money on a dedicated shotgun for it. I just hunt with a pump shotgun for that. But the old Ruger Red Labels, over and under, with stainless steel, just amazingly beautiful guns and very utilitarian. So they're not just a pretty gun; they're also very utilitarian. They're rock solid. All the ones that I've seen, they're just solidly built, like Ruger likes to make stuff. And as far as I'm aware, they're the only double gun that's made in stainless steel. So I like that. And one more and I'll close it out. I would like to have a really nice 243. I love the 243. It's, in my opinion, one of the best deer calibers. Not deer calibers for youth, not deer calibers for women only, but the best deer calibers, period. End of sentence. 243 is awesome. I've killed so much stuff with a 243. The 243 I have is actually not a very good gun. It's a mid 2000s model Remington 700. Quality's not great. It's not very accurate, right? It's maybe 2-3 MOA gun. Even so, I've killed I don't know how much stuff with it. Deer and elk and wolf, and I've killed a bunch of stuff with that gun because it's what I had when I was doing a lot of hunting, and that's what I could afford. But it's not a very good gun. It's got a flimsy plastic stock. It's not very accurate. I probably could pay to have it accurized, but by the time I went through all that, I could probably just get a new gun. But I would like a really nice high-end 243 because I just really like the 243 as a caliber. I like hunting with it. For a deer, it's a fantastic. For elk, and I have taken elk with it. I'm not advising you do that, especially if you're new to hunting. But if you're really patient and you're going to wait, for a 200-yard and in shot, and you're going to wait for a good broadside shot, and that you can put the shot where you want it, it's fine. But it's not a great elk caliber. But I'm saying I would like a dedicated 243 deer rifle and a very nice rifle. Something like that Ruger RSI and a 243. Hopefully that would be accurate because I've heard the RSIs aren't super accurate, but maybe I could make it that way. Something like a Winchester featherweight in 243. That would be nice. So that would be a pretty cool gun. Like a really nice, very accurate, lightweight, walk around all day 243. I wish that 243 was a more popular cartridge. I think it's phenomenal for most people because most people hunt deer. Like most of you guys live east of the Mississippi, and you don't need whatever crazy bigger caliber. If you want one, that's fine. Like if you just want to shoot deer with a 300 Win Mag, have at it. But I don't think that it does any better. I've guided and shot enough stuff to see the results, and I actually don't think so. I actually think that I've seen more poor results with the 300 Magnums. And not because they don't do well ballistically, it's because people don't practice with them because they hurt, right? And people aren't going to go out and shoot 100 rounds a day out of it. Whereas you could easily shoot 100 rounds a day out of a 243. So I like the 243, and I think for deer it's a phenomenal caliber. There's a lot of other really good calibers, but I like the 243. It's a full-powered rifle cartridge, right? It's not like a 7.62 by 39 or a 30-30, which I would consider intermediate. Still good calibers, but 243 is up. It's a neck-down 308. It's a full-powered rifle cartridge. If you're smart about your bullet selection, it's a phenomenal cartridge. It's also a phenomenal varmint cartridge. It's a good crossover cartridge for that. So I just really like the 243. But a really nice one, not like a cheap youth model 700 that I bought at Walmart I don't know how many years ago. That would be pretty cool. Anyway, just some thoughts there. You guys have probably heard me ramble on long enough. What excites you? I'd love to hear your comments. You could post them. If you post them on YouTube, I don't know when I will ever get on YouTube again to check them. If you post them on the podcast or go to Patreon, I'll probably see them. So there's that. But I'd love to hear what you guys, what's like a rifle or a pistol or even a revolver that you really want. Shotguns, whatever gets you excited. What are your guns that you have on your interest list? Your tactical tip of the day. If you are looking at any of these guns that are a little bit more esoteric, a little bit, not mainstream, that aren't made anymore, a lot of the times if they're on something like Gunbroker, which Gunbroker is great, then they can demand a premium. If you look at other sites that sell guns online, used guns that aren't as trafficked, you may do pretty well. The tip is Cabela's. I'm not sponsored by Cabela's or anything, but they have a used gun library, and you can look at their guns as long as they list them from all over the country, and they generally have some pretty decent prices on weird stuff that not a lot of people are going to be looking for. Like I doubt a lot of people are looking for a Ruger RSI stainless steel in 243. Maybe there's a bunch of people, but probably not, right? That's just one example. But if there's if there's a decent amount of people looking for it, there's going to be a lot more competition in general on Gunbroker because everybody knows about Gunbroker. So if you're looking for that kind of gun that meets those criteria, you might try looking on Cabela's online used gun library. Okay, for the tactical verse of the day, talking about working two jobs, making a decent living by God's grace. One of my a book that I really like, if you're looking for wisdom, is Ecclesiastes. It's a phenomenal book. Nothing is better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that his soul should enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw was from the hand of God. Okay, my comments there. Money is not the root of all evil. That's a misquote if somebody says that. It's the love of money, right? We all probably use money as a medium of exchange. I don't love money. In fact, I'd really like to be working less right now, but we're at war, and the private security contracting is hot right now, and they asked me to step up and help. So I'm doing that, but I'd actually like to work less and make less money because, one, the more money you make, the more taxes you got to pay. And a lot of that goes to stuff I don't like. But another reason is there's only 2 men in the Bible I know that didn't die. So odds are I'm going to die. And I can't take any of that money with me. I can't take any of the guns with me either. But if I'm going to work and make money, if I have got a little extra, I might as well spend it on something that I enjoy. And I really enjoy firearms. And I like shooting. Spend a decent chunk of that on ammunition. There's nothing wrong with enjoying the good of your labor, assuming it's not a irresponsible purchase or it's not something inherently sinful, but don't be in love with money. So you got to walk that line. We're called to be in the world, but not of the world. So, enjoy the things that you earn and can spend money on. Enjoy those. Remember, they're a gift from God, and without God, you wouldn't have anything. And don't put it up on a pedestal. Don't love it. You love God, right? You worship God. Don't worship stuff. Don't worship money. Don't worship things. Don't worship women. Worship God only. But enjoy the good things that he puts in your life. They're a gift from God. So just look at that soberly and well-balanced. Be circumspect about it. Anyway, thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.